Well, it's 7 o'clock straight up now, so it's time for us to go live. I want to welcome those of you that are here live with me right now for this Q&A on the Transformational Project Leadership Masterclass series. And for those of you who are going to be listening to this later on the recording, thanks for your time as well. I feel like I need to give a little bit of a brief introduction, even though many of you that are here are already on my list, you're a part of my community and know a little bit about me, but always helpful for those of you who may not have had much exposure to me to really understand who I am and what I stand for in the world. This work that I do, working with project managers and program managers and teaching what I call the human side of project management, it's really become my work to do in the world. And I say that because I have extensive experience working on projects over the years. I spent 25 years working for a large company, a large manufacturing company. And for 16 of those years, I was in management and was either a leader or a team member on literally hundreds of different projects over that time. And one of the things that I experienced was the challenge of getting people to really come together and work effectively on project teams, even when we knew each other. And when I started this coaching business almost a decade ago now, I really felt like there was something that I wanted to do in the world to make a positive impact. And this was the place, So I've been a student of peak performance and human behavior for more than 30 years now. It's a part of me. It's really a part of who I am. And one of the things that I realized is that there's not a lot of this kind of knowledge that's really being spread in the project and program management community. And so I wanted to make a difference. My goal as a coach is to make a positive impact on the world. And in order for me to do that, I needed to find a place where I could really add a lot of value. And, thankfully I've been able to do that over these last few years and really enjoyed doing it. I've met so many incredible leaders in that time and had the opportunity to serve them in really meaningful ways, whether that's through my newsletters and simply sharing my information on what I think, great leadership looks like, or speaking at PMI chapters all over the country, speaking at PMI global congresses, or leading global webinars. It's really been an opportunity that I am very privileged and humbled to be able to do. And so this work now, this is kind of it's that next iteration, it's that next evolution of my work, because, sometimes people, there are barriers to people getting to me and working with me in my classroom environment. And I wanted to be able to, again, increase my impact. And the best way to do that is to offer something where I can reach people on a global level and not have to be in the same room with them. The other thing that was really important to me was, training is so critically important. I know that, in my own life and just in the last decade since I became a coach, as I sit down and consider all the training programs that I've been through, all the support that I've enlisted, all the investment that I've made in training, certifications, and my own personal growth, those investments come to well over $70,000. And, it's been money well spent. All of us, we need to grow. And for me as an entrepreneur, everything that I can do, every resource that I can add, every tool that I can add to my toolkit is only going to enhance the level of support and expertise that I can deliver to the people that are a part of this community. And so, I say that, not necessarily as a source of pride, but as a point of consideration for anyone who's looking to grow as a leader. We all want to be better leaders in the world. The truth about us as human beings is we are aspirational beings. I don't know anyone who goes to work and says, gosh, I really hope I do a terrible job today. I just want to show up and collect a paycheck. I mean, that's just not how we're wired. and we want to go to work and we want our jobs to contribute to us becoming the best version of ourselves. Everybody that I know, certainly, and the work that they do in the world, it has to be meaningful to them. It has to have a purpose. It has to have impact. And many times we allow the circumstances of our lives to interfere with that impact and to get in the way of us really finding the meaning and purpose in what we do. And so my life has really, over these last 10 years, has been about, removing those obstacles from people's lives and helping them to really get clear on what it is that they're meant to do, and then to be able to take meaningful steps to make those things happen. One of the things that I know from my experience in the business world is that everything's a project, right? This world runs on projects. If you look around you, most of you are probably watching on a computer. There may be a few of you watching on your mobile devices. Those all started as a project. They started as an idea, and then we pulled together a project team and created these incredible tools and resources that we have all around us. So the importance of projects in the practical application in this world are, they're undeniable. And the challenge that a lot of us face is that even though we know how important projects are, many times project and program managers are thought of as an afterthought. I'm going to put you in charge of this project. I'm going to give you a group of people from around the organization that you did not assemble. They will have different skill levels, different levels of interest. They might have competing priorities and maybe even have conflicting bosses. And you have no direct authority over them. So yay, good luck with that, right? And that kind of tends to be the life of a project and program manager. And the bigger piece of that then becomes, why would people want to listen to you? If they know you don't have any direct authority over them, what are the tools that you can use to really create influence and to really become a transformational leader in your organization? And so that's what this program is all about. It's how do you harness the resources that you already have and then bring out some of those resources that you may not even know are there and available to you. And then how do we take meaningful steps to help you practice and implement and integrate these tools into your work life on a consistent basis? And so that's what this work is all about. I've worked with so many really outstanding project managers over the last few years, and it never ceases to amaze me how really invested they are in themselves and invested in really making a difference. Like I said, we're aspirational. We want to make an impact with our work, and this is one of the great ways that we can do that. So tonight, I'm just going to answer some questions. I do have some questions that were emailed in advance, and I'm going to answer those first, as I had promised in my emails to you. And then I'm going to, there is a live chat. And actually, as I'm sitting here, I realize I'm almost 10 minutes in, and I just want to do a quick check-in and find out if people can hear me okay. I just want to, so if you can type in, any of you that are out there listening, you can type into the chat box and tell me whether or not I'm coming through clearly. That would be great. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is go into that chat box and start putting in your questions, even while I'm answering these other questions. Some of the things that, thank you for saying that. Yes, I'm seeing that you can hear me. Some of the questions that I'm going to be answering might spark other questions for you. So as you hear these, if you come up with a question, type it into the chat box, and I'll get to those as I can. I've blocked out an hour for this. I don't know if we'll go a full hour. And you know what? Here's what I'll say. If we have enough questions and there's enough interest, I don't mind delaying my dinner time and staying on with you as long as there's value and you guys are really benefiting from it. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and just read the first question that I received. So this one came in from Martin, and Martin said, I feel like I really don't have a lot of authority in my organization. So what can I expect to really be able to get out of this program? Well, It's an outstanding question, Martin. And here's what I'll say. There are a lot of different levels of leadership. And certainly we all know that we have certain leaders who lead by authority. They lead by position. They've been given power and responsibility by the organization. But we also know a lot of people, we've all worked with them, and we've all been engaged by them. We know those people that we consider to be informal leaders. Now, what I would say to you is if you're a project or program manager, you're already a leader. And whether or not you feel that you have any authority that's been given to you by your organization, just by nature of your role, you have a responsibility. You know, you've been put in charge of whatever project or projects you have under your guidance, and it's up to you to really impact your team and get them to pull together and work together. So here's what I would say you're going to learn from this program, and here's where it's really going to be beneficial for you. Some of the things that we're going to talk about is really how to understand what drives people. So even, I'll say this, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, even in reading that question, what I heard in that was a little bit of a feeling of being powerless in your organization. And I know what that feels like, to feel powerless and to feel like you really can't institute anything meaningful in terms of change or pushing, you know, initiatives forward. But what I would say is that powerlessness and powerfulness, you know, if that's a word, well, it came out of my mouth, so I'm going to say it's a word. But being powerless or being powerful are really just part of the same continuum. And really, it's up to you to exercise your power in a meaningful way. And when I talk about power, it's not, you know, I have power over you and you will do as I say. Power is actually, you know, the greatest exercise of power is being in service to the people who work with you. That to me is the greatest measure of someone who's a powerful leader. And so what I will be teaching in this series is a couple of things. First of all, how to understand what really drives people. What are our internal motivators? Because it's important to know. I don't know a lot of people that are teaching this work, especially in this project management space. And that's why I've been able to create such an impact in this industry over these last few years. And I think it's critical for us to know not only what drives other people, but certainly what drives us. Because we tend to think that we know what motivates us, but sometimes when you start to dig under the surface, you see that there are actually some things going on there that we may or may not have been aware of. So when we understand how we operate and what drives us, that gives us some insights into how to lead people forward and to do it in a way that actually engages them. The other thing is we're going to be learning the tools of influence. And I'll just give you a quick one right here that you can start to use right away. One of the most powerful tools of influence is what we call reciprocity, okay? And reciprocity is simply this. If I do something nice for you, on an internal level, it's implicit, it's not explicit, but on an implicit internal level, you're going to feel on some level that you need to do something in return for me. It's human nature. That's, again, how we're wired. You know, the reason that, you know, if you look at, you know, simply look at evolution, we are certainly not on the top of the food chain. You know, we certainly have dominion over much of the animal world, but we're certainly not at the top of the food chain. And one of the reasons that we survived as a species was because of this reciprocity, because we were able to come together and be in service to each other. And when we do something nice for another person, they feel, you know, biologically, you know, there's an impact on them, and they feel like they need to do something nice in return for us. So that's one of the tools of influence that we'll be talking about. There are many others, but certainly that's one that you can start to use right away. And you know, the law of reciprocity, you know, what actually happens, and I'll ask you to think about this and see if this rings true for you. If someone does something nice for you and you do nothing in return for them, how does that make you feel? And if you're like most people, you're going to feel kind of guilty. You're going to feel kind of bad. You're going to feel like a taker, right? We have names for people like that: selfish, self-centered, taker. you know, and then for the people who do nice things, we call them givers. Well, you know, givers gain, takers lose. And so, you know, when you give to others and you are extending some, you know, some olive branch to them, or some kindness, or something that you're doing for them, you know, and here's the key, you know, it can't be done with the idea of, oh, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that for me. I want to be very clear about that. I'm just saying, let nature take its course. But that is one of the most powerful tools of influence that we have. And I've seen it work not only in my own life, but in the lives of people that I've dealt with. Some of the other things you're going to learn, you know, we're going to learn about the power of emotional intelligence and how do you understand other people, and, you know, how do you learn to connect? How do you build rapport with people? And, you know, how do you truly become a transformational leader? And a lot of it has to do with how you know, picture yourself. And, you know, one of the interesting things that I've learned over the years is that there's always questions. There's always questions going on. And even as I'm speaking, there are people out here that are viewing that are maybe formulating questions in their own mind. Does this really mean anything? And why should I be listening to them? And, oh, how do I apply this in my life? You know, so there's always multiple conversations going on in our life. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself. Because if your internal communication is, I'm powerless, I don't have any authority, I'm not able to affect meaningful change in my organization, well, then that's exactly how you're going to show up. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. You know, leadership is an internal and an external game, but you've got to get clear on what's happening internally so that you can show up more powerfully externally. So I hope that that helped. If you have more questions about it, certainly, you know, jump on the chat box there and type in whatever questions you have. The next question came from Cindy, and she said, you know, sometimes it can be incredibly difficult for me to handle conflict in the moment. What can I do to be more calm in those times and not get upset? Well, Cindy, for many, many years, I was a classic conflict avoider. And I will tell you that many times when we're in a position like this, where we feel like we don't maybe necessarily have a tremendous amount of authority, and there is conflict happening, whether it's between us and another team member, or multiple team members, or between team members and we're just, you know, they're observing, you know, we can feel very helpless sometimes. And, you know, sometimes, you know, just truth be told, you know, I've seen this, not only have I done this, but I've seen it in some of my coaching clients. They tend to pretend that it's not happening, right? They ignore the people issues, hoping that they'll go away, they'll resolve themselves somehow, so that I don't have to engage in the conflict, because I'm a conflict avoider. Because in my mind, conflict is bad. And so there's a place to start. You know, how do you view conflict? What I've learned is that conflict actually is neither positive or negative. Conflict is actually just a sign that something needs to change, something needs to be addressed. And so I see conflict in the workplace as something that can actually lead to a positive outcome. Because if there's, in lieu of conflict, if you're in an environment where there's no conflict, then people probably aren't really engaging on a really deep level. The other thing I would say is that, you know, if you start to feel yourself getting upset, here's a really good thing for you to do, is just do a check-in. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, as soon as I start to feel upset, if there's conflict happening around me, you know, I'm always going to react to that. There's going to be that instant reaction in my body. And the joy of live broadcast, I've got a smoke alarm going off in my house. I think that somebody's cooking. But that said, I'm just going to keep going. Here's what I want you to know. When you feel yourself getting upset on any level, just do a check-in and ask, what does this mean to me? What is the meaning that I'm giving to this thing that's happening right now? Because typically the only reason that we get upset or have any kind of an emotional response is because of the meaning that we're giving to this event. And so the way to bring ourselves down is to ask this question: what else could this mean? And really, truly seek an empowering meaning, because you're already making it up. Just to be clear about that, when there's a conflict around you and you start to get upset and you feel like you're going to lose control, it's because you've already told yourself what that means, and it means something bad. It means something negative. It means I have to respond, and you either go into that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And if we're getting upset and we jump in, typically we go into that flight mode or fight mode. We put on armor, and we get ready for battle. But here's the funny thing about it: though, just because you think it doesn't make it true, right? I want you to remember that. And this is something that all of us can benefit from. I know this has certainly been a huge learning point for me. Just because I think something does not make it true. It feels true, but that's the thing is, we don't even need to, our thoughts don't even need to be true or reliable. We just have to believe they're true. So we create our own level of certainty about what things mean, and then we respond in relation to that thought that we're having, that meaning that we're actually giving to that event. So we're going to do a lot of work around conflict in the workplace, because it's one of the places where I've really learned to love to engage. I don't shy away from conflict the way I used to. And I want to be clear about this. I mean, I'm going to be very open, for those of you who have, heard me speak live, or you've been in one of my training programs, or you've been on one of my webinars. I'm very open and transparent about it. I have not always been a great leader. Many times I've been a liability. And it's because I start to have a thought, and then I follow that thought, and I follow it, and I follow it, and I just keep reinforcing it, and I don't even question whether the thought is true or not. Well, today, I treat my life very differently, and it makes me respond differently. It makes me actually more effective at responding to things, and that's whether it's in my work life, in my professional life, or in my personal life. So I hope that was helpful to you, Cindy. I hope that helps you to calm down and find that peace. And actually, here's a couple other things I will say. We hear those old cliches about go for a walk. If you start getting upset, go for a walk, or count to 10 and take some deep breaths. Well, I'm going to tell you, those things actually work. That's why they're cliches, because they do work. And so, in the moment, if you're still afraid that you're going to either say or do something that you might later regret, then the best thing to do is be honest and transparent with people and say, listen, I can't really address this right now. I need to take a time out because I'm feeling really upset about what's happening here. So I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to go back to my office. I'm going to do whatever. I'm just going to get away from this situation. But then I do want to have a conversation about it, because being transparent and honest with people actually creates a layer of trust between you. Otherwise you just jump in and you start to get angry. All that does is shut everybody down. Anytime that we engage in conflict and it leads to an argument is never going to be productive, because what happens is actually in our body we release cortisol and adrenaline into our body. So we get amped up and we're ready for a fight. We've got the armor on, and the cortisol leads to greater levels of stress in our body. And it literally shuts down this piece, the prefrontal cortex. We literally do not think straight when we're in a heated conflict or a heated argument. So, the best thing you can do is, in lieu of being able to calm yourself down by asking that question, what else could this mean, and finding a more empowering alternative for it. If you're not able to do that, remove yourself from the situation. I promise you, it will save you conflict, it will save you pain, and it will save relationships. Here's a question from Jerry, and he asked, how do you suggest we handle someone who tends to talk over other people in meetings, or even at times can be abrasive and talk down to others? This is the classic meeting hijacker personality, the person who puts others down to feel good about themselves. And one of the things that we're going to be really taking a deep dive into in this program is human needs psychology, which really explains the human operating system, for lack of a better term. It really defines and describes how we operate and why we do the things we do. And so in this case, the typical response to this person, or the typical reason that this person shows up like that, is because they're seeking some level of significance. Okay, significance is one of the major drivers of social behavior in our lives, and the drive for significance or status, it can be one of the drivers. It can lead to some of the greatest achievements in human history, and it's also led to some of our greatest atrocities, because we all need to feel special and worthy of attention. And I'll tell it to you as simply as I can, and I don't want this to sound like a put down or trite in any way, shape, or form, but this is what I know to be true. Look at children and look at how they act when they feel like they're not being seen or heard or acknowledged. What do? They throw fits, they throw tantrums, they make messes, they yell, they scream, they kick, they do whatever they do to get attention, right? And we see that all the time. I'm a father of 3. Now, all my kids are grown, but truth be told, there are still times where they kick and scream and throw a tantrum and make a fuss because they want attention. And we do it. We do it in the workplace. And so, that behavior is really about them saying, hey, listen, I don't feel appreciated. I don't feel like I'm being noticed. And it's really difficult for us sometimes, because our first reaction to that, and certainly mine for many years, was this: well, you're just wrong. You're being a jerk. What's your problem, right? And so we criticize those people. We make them wrong for behaving that way. Now, certainly, if they're behaving in an intentionally harmful way, that's going to be a problem for people, and it hurts feelings, and it leads to problems with the team. It leaves human carnage in their wake. And no matter how productive, no matter how talented they are at what they do, I always say you've got to measure, the means. The end does not justify the means, and you've got to measure that productivity against the damage that they're doing. And so with a person like that, just understand that this person is seeking attention on some level. And I promise you this, they know that by putting other people down, it's really a very negative way of feeling better about themselves. It's a very ineffective way. It's a low quality way to do it. So I would encourage you to, with this person, if they speak up in a meeting and they're talking over people, then politely ask them, say, listen, you know what? I know you have ideas and I want to hear them. Let's get through this agenda, and we'll come back and revisit what you have to say. And if we don't have time for it in this meeting, I want you to come see me in my office, because what they're looking for is just an opportunity to be heard. And if you start to do that often enough and start to give them a voice, you're going to see that behavior start to diminish. Because many, many times, and I've seen this in my own experience, and I've worked with people that we would categorize as problem people, right? And what I will tell you is that they're really not problem people. They just have an ineffective strategy to deal with what's going on. But you can teach them how to behave. And I'm going to be teaching you ways to do that. So I hope that helps. Certainly, it's never fun to be in that situation and to have someone hijacking your meetings and talking over other people. The next question is from Jeff. This is a big investment. How do I know it's going to be worth it? Well, there you go. That's the $64,000 question, Jeff. And what I hear in that question is, first of all, I want to acknowledge you for asking it, because some people wouldn't be courageous enough to ask that question openly. But I appreciate that. I really do. Here's what I'll tell you. My goal in this world, my work in this world, is to bring value and to contribute in meaningful ways to people really moving forward in their lives and to becoming the best version of themselves at work, at home, anywhere in their lives. I am 100% committed to delivering value in this program. But you're right, it is a big investment. There's no question about it. But what I know to be true is that when we invest in ourselves, that's when we grow. I promise you, I'm going to be teaching you things that you've probably never heard before. And I'm going to be coaching you. Here's where, the biggest piece of value comes in. Certainly the training, there are those 12 training webinars that we'll be going through, the live delivery of that content. They're not actually webinars. They'll be delivered in live webinar format and then recorded and then put up in the, I'll have an online academy for you to access, so you can go in there, a membership portal, so you can go in and watch them again and again. But certainly every training will be delivered live, and there's going to be incredible content in there. It's going to represent 30 years of the best leadership training, learning on human behavior and peak performance, and all the things that have helped me to build an incredibly successful coaching, speaking, and training practice. So all of that's going to be there, but here's where the true value comes in. It's going to be in the coaching, and everybody in this program gets an hour-long coaching call every month, private coaching call with me, and you will be amazed, because that's where the implementation happens. Because one of the things that I've learned, and I say this quite often when I go into organizations to do training, training without follow-up, training without accountability, training without implementation is nothing but entertainment. And as I said in my email, when I sent out that last email to let you know we're switching over to Google Hangouts and YouTube for this live broadcast because of Facebook restrictions, I said in there they only want comedians and people like that. I'm not a comedian, but I will promise you this. Some of this stuff is going to be it's going to knock your socks off. And what I know to be true is that when we invest in ourselves at that level, that's when we really have some skin in the game. I've like I said at the beginning, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in my training, and I look at it as nothing but positive. And even in the programs where I've gone through and said, I've learned a few things, I always look for what are the nuggets that I can pull out of there that I can actually use. This won't be like that. This is going to be hardcore strategy. It's going to be hardcore learning about leadership, human behavior, and then it's going to be really specific and direct coaching that's going to help you to really implement these things and really become a transformational leader. I use that term very deliberately in creating this program, because this is really the intersection of personal transformation and project leadership. And it's going to be, this is going to be a program that's going to change a lot of lives. I'm really confident about that. But here's the other thing. If in the first 30 days you don't feel like you've gotten what you think you were promised, then opt out. Opt out. There's, you'll pay for what you've received, but everything else either gets refunded to you or your payments stop. There's literally no risk here. I'm 100% engaged in this. I'm going to deliver, and I want you to understand that that's my goal in everything I do. So I hope that answers your question. It's always a tough one. One of the things I will say is that when we come up against investments like this, especially if we work in an organization, sometimes we think, well, maybe my company should be paying for this. Okay, maybe they should. Then why don't you ask? If that's, truly what you think, then ask. Because the other thing I know is that if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So there are a lot of ways to go through this. I believe that, this is actually a bargain. Based on what my private one-on-one clients pay, this is an absolute bargain, and you're going to get tremendous value from it. So that said, I don't want to beat a dead horse. Let me move on to the next question. Pamela says, I've been hearing a lot about emotional intelligence these last few years. Can you talk more about that, what it really is and why it's important to me? Great question, Pamela. Emotional intelligence is going to be a big component of this program. And everybody who enrolls in this program is going to go through an assessment called the EQI 2.0 assessment. It is one of the best EQ assessments out that are on the market. It's one of only two that are actually commercially available that is validated by the American Psychological Association as being valid and reliable in measuring and speaking to emotional intelligence. Now, for the purposes of this broadcast and to answer your question specifically, what is EQ? Well, this is my favorite definition. Emotional intelligence is the ability to identify, assess, and manage your own emotions while also having a positive impact on the emotions of the people around you. Okay? Identify, assess, and manage your own emotions and have a positive impact on the emotions of the people around you. The thing is, we are all emotional beings. One of the quotes that I use all the time when I speak in front of groups in PMI chapters is this. Dale Carnegie once said, remember when you're dealing with people that you're not dealing with creatures of logic, but creatures of emotion. And I think many times we forget that, and we have a tendency to make emotions bad or wrong, or we get uncomfortable with them. And it's because we haven't been trained on how to deal with emotions effectively. Most of our training now, I know up until the last 20 years or so, most of my training on emotions came from my parents, my siblings, my peers, my teachers, my bosses. And that's where I learned emotions. And I will tell you, they were not all really good teachers, okay? So I've had to go out and study and learn and invest in emotional intelligence and learn these tools because they're incredibly important. Here's why it's important to project managers. Actually, why it's important to anybody in any leadership role. There have been a lot of studies done about the impact of EQ on your long-term success. And what they've discovered is that your level of IQ, your cognitive intelligence, is literally responsible for between 6 and 20% of your overall success in any area of life. Now, these are cognitive studies that have been done by people way smarter than me, PhDs and doctors that this is their livelihood. So IQ responsible for between 6 and 20% of your overall success in any specific area of your life. EQ, or emotional intelligence, is responsible for between 27 and 45% of your overall success in any area of your life. So what does that mean? Well, one of my favorite sayings is life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. Well, that's exactly what this is saying, and what the studies are showing is that emotional intelligence actually goes more toward your long-term success in any area of your life than your cognitive intelligence. Some other studies have shown that when it comes to leadership, just plain leadership, that EQ is responsible for up to 85 to 90% of the difference between average leaders and their more exceptional peers. So, think about it this way. Think about the best boss or bosses that you've ever worked for. And what made them so great? Was it how smart they were, the great decisions they made, how logical and structured and analytical they were? Or was it how they made you feel when you were around them? And I'd be willing to bet that for most of you, if not all of you, it was really around how they made you feel. That's EQ right there in a nutshell. So how do you make people feel? Emotions are contagious. We're all carriers. We're all spreading something. What are you spreading? And are you spreading what you want? So, we're going to do a deep, deep dive into emotional intelligence. We're going to cover that in at least 2 full modules of the program, and then everybody who enrolls in this program gets that EQ assessment, which is the value of that alone is $500, and it will identify 5 main areas. They're called the 5 composite areas: self-perception, self-expression, interpersonal, decision-making, and stress management. And we'll look at all 5 of those areas, and underneath each of these areas there are specific behaviors that roll up that give you an overall score in those areas. And one of the really cool components about this instrument, and the reason I love it so much, and the reason I invested in becoming certified in it, is because it also gives you this really cool thing. There are certain specific components that speak directly to your level of happiness in life. And so there's a happiness quotient that actually comes out of this as well. And it's really interesting to look at that, because it's going to give you an idea of where you stand on the happiness scale in life. And so if you look at your life and think, well, I'm really happy, well, you might be surprised. Maybe you're happier than you thought, or maybe you're not as happy as you think you are. So it's really kind of an interesting but very instructive instrument. The assessment is incredible, and you get a huge report. It's about a 30-page report that goes into really intimate detail, not only on what contributes to your emotional intelligence and where you stand on a spectrum, but also what are some key things, key areas that you can actually work on improving your emotional intelligence. Because that's always the question at the end of the day is, okay, so now I see where I may not be so hot in these areas of emotional intelligence. What am I supposed to do to improve it? Well, we'll give you a specific plan that you can implement to start to improve your emotional intelligence in very specific areas. So it's a really powerful work. It's become one of my favorite components, and I speak actually quite often on emotional intelligence. So hope that answers your question. This is a great program for going through that. The final question that I have comes from David, and he says, sometimes it feels like it's impossible to keep everyone happy on the team. What do you suggest to help deal with all the different personalities? Wow. The first thing I will say is, if you're trying to keep everybody happy on the team, you're going to fail. And you've probably already experienced that. I don't know the formula for success, but the formula for failure is trying to make everyone happy. It just won't happen. So I would say let go of that desire. Here's what I would say. Be more focused on being in service to people. Find out what people need and give that to them, because that's what ultimately is going to make people happy. If you're constantly bending over backward for people, it's what I call the nice guy syndrome. And I'm actually creating this, really new body of work all around nice guys in business, whether it's in project management, project leadership, or any other area of leadership in your organization. Let me tell you something. Nice guys make terrible leaders. They really do. And I'm saying that as a guy who went through most of my life being a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy anymore. Doesn't mean I'm not nice, but I'm not a nice guy. I hope that makes sense. What I am is I'm empathetic. What I am is I'm kind. What I am is I'm compassionate. And those things really speak to what human needs are more effectively than being nice. Because being nice is just trying to make everybody happy. And that's a dead-end street. And what I know from my own experience as I look back over the course of my life and my desire to make people happy was that usually the person who's most unhappy, right here, me, at the end of the day. So what I would say is that when you're trying to deal with all these different personalities, the first thing that you need to do is really understand where each of those people are coming from. One of our challenges as human beings is that we tend to be very judgmental. It's a part of our nature. It's part of our fabric. Some of you, as you came on this video, and those of you who are going to watch later on the recording, might be judging me. Well, who is this guy? And why is he an authority in this area? And why should we believe him? What makes him credible? And why is he wearing a black shirt? Whatever it is, we judge people, and it's a part of our fabric. So what I want you to do, instead of judging, which is our natural response, get curious about people. Get curious about why people are the way they are, because it does a couple of things. The best thing it does, first of all, when I get curious about someone, it immediately removes my judgment about them. If I'm curious about you, I'm probably not criticizing or judging you. I really want to understand you. And understanding and empathy are the pathway to creating trust and commitment and loyalty. That's the one thing we're going to see, that, without question, everybody's different. But Everybody's different, but we're all the same. We all have some intrinsic needs that if we know how to meet those needs, it's going to put us head and shoulders above the rest. It's really going to create an opening and an opportunity for us to connect more deeply with the people on our teams. And when we connect with them, we build that bridge that leads to trust. And when we have trust, that's when we can start to build commitment. That's when we can start to use our influence to get people to do the things that need to be done, to drive the enterprise forward, to drive this initiative forward, to create the successful outcomes that we want in our projects. So, stop trying to make everybody happy. Stop. If you're being a nice guy, and I say this to everyone, not just to David, if you're trying to be a nice guy, please, for your own sake, just stop. Instead of being nice, be direct. We can do things with kindness. We can do things with compassion. We can do things with empathy. And when we lead from that place, it's way more effective than being nice. If you think about it, nice people are very vanilla, and many times they come across as inauthentic because we start to realize it at some point, oh, they're just saying that because they think that's what I want to hear. Well, that's what nice guys do. They ask themselves the question, what does this person need to hear from me in order to do what I need to get done? Well, stop doing that because people already know. I mean, the biggest impact and the biggest deterrent to us building credibility with our teams is being inauthentic. And so, if you're trying to please everyone, first of all, you're not going to please anyone, certainly not yourself, but you're going to come across as inauthentic. So that said, we're going to talk about some of the ways to really be direct with people. Direct communication is incredibly important, but one of the things that I've learned is that we're not very good at it because our challenge with being direct is this, and this speaks directly to the nice guy. Well, if I'm not being a nice guy, well, then I'm probably being a jerk. Well, again, that's a continuum. We got nice guy over here and we got, complete jerk over here. But what about that middle ground? What about that middle ground? How do we get to there? Because that's where we can really be effective and make impact on people. And that's where we can, do the right things in the right way, be a really powerful leader for people, and stand for something in the world. One of the things that everybody knows, whether you're on this or you get my emails, there is no question about what I stand for in the world. Nobody questions that anymore. Well, they used to because I didn't even know myself. I was being too nice a guy. Well, everybody knows what I stand for in the world, and people respect that. Even if they don't believe in what I believe in, that's cool. That's great. But they'll respect me because I put a stake in the ground for what I stand for, and I walk the talk every single day of my life. And that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. Not in terms of how you, what you believe in, but how you stand for what you believe in, and how can you own that and really be a more confident leader. Because you know what? Here's the thing I know with absolute certainty: people crave authentic leadership. They really do. I mean, we're so sick of hearing, when they ask the question, well, why do we have to do this? Why are we doing this on the project? Why is this change coming down? And so many times, because we as project leaders don't feel we have the authority, what do we fall back on? It's that old standard, because they said so. Well, you want to lose credibility? Keep saying that, because then, where's your leadership? Whether it was a directive from above, whether it came from the executive steering committee or from your project sponsor or from your PMO or from, anybody that you are reporting to, from whatever stakeholder is driving this project, even if that directive did come from them, the easiest way to lose credibility with your team is to say, because they said so. That nebulous person over there. Own it. Stand for something. And say, because this is our charter, because this is the direction we're going in now. And let me tell you what it means. And then give them information, because a lot of times what happens is when we see changes coming in projects, people start to get into a fearful state, because change actually creates a state of uncertainty for us, and it creates a little bit of fear. And so whatever you can do to calm that fear, that's going to help to provide them with a sense of certainty and ease so they can get out of that fight or flight mode and really focus on what are the outcomes that we're driving toward. And that's when you start to see teams really come together, really become cohesive, and really start to push each other to learn and grow and to create a successful outcome. I've seen so many examples of teams where people told me they're dysfunctional. And I never buy into that on my own. I really don't. I don't believe in just saying right off the bat that this is a dysfunctional team. They may be acting in a dysfunctional way, but I always believe that people can be saved. Saved. That's not even the right word. Teams can be brought together, and how we behave, how we see each other, how we work with each other, we can impact that. And teams can be saved from going into the abyss, okay? We can take a dysfunctional team and turn it around. I've seen it happen too many times to believe otherwise. The challenge is we don't always have the right tools. As I've said many times, I'm going to teach you everything that the PMBOK doesn't teach you about working with people. And I think it's critical that you get this information. If you want to be effective, all of you that are listening to this and all of you that are part of my community, you're already very well trained. You're technically, probably at the top of your game. The processes and the tactics for project management. I'm not going to teach you any of that. You don't need any of that. What you need is hardcore human strategy. And that's what I'm going to be teaching in this program. Right now, that as of right now was the last question that I had from David. I don't see any more questions in the chat box right now, and I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes. We do have about 9 minutes till the top of the hour. I can fill that because God knows I'm a speaker, and as my wife will say, it's not a problem getting me to start talking. It's more a problem getting me to stop. But that said, if there are any more questions, certainly type those into the chat box. But in the meantime, here's a few things that I just want to leave you with, a few thoughts for you to consider if you're on the fence about whether or not you should enroll in the Transformational Project Leadership Masterclass series. If you've ever struggled with getting your teams to come together and really work together as a team, really bond, this program's for you. If you've ever gone home at the end of the day and just thrown your hands up and said, why do I even do this? What have I gotten myself into? Why do I keep banging my head against the wall every day trying to get these people to listen to me? This program is for you. If you've ever felt like you just don't have the tools to deal with people effectively, to deal with the emotions, to deal with the conflict, to deal with the chaos that is always a part of team dynamics, it's always going to be there. But if you just feel like you don't have the tools to deal with that, this program is for you. And if you want to be someone who really becomes a truly exceptional leader, someone who is truly transformational in your organization, someone that people look up to, respect, and want to follow, then this program is for you. Listen, there are a lot of ways that you can invest your money. I know that, and I don't take that lightly. My entire life has been geared toward this moment and geared toward bringing this kind of value into the world. It just so happens that I deliver it in the project management world, in this PM space. It's what I love. And it's probably because I spent so many years on projects myself. And I know how disheartening it can be to not feel like you're making an impact and feel like you're always, pushing that boulder up the hill. Well, I can tell you with absolute certainty, it doesn't have to be that way. And so if you're on the fence about it, listen, get off the fence, invest in yourself. If we want to grow, we need to do that anyways. Here's the thing. The value in this program is undeniable. I'm personally promising you that you're going to learn things that you've probably never heard before, but it's not only going to impact how you show up at work, it's literally, I guess here's the best way I can put it. If I can teach you how to create better, stronger, more effective relationships with the people you work with, think about what's going to happen to the relationships of the people that you live with, the people that you love, the people that are most important to you in your life. You're going to see those just go through the roof. And I guess at the end of the day, that's really the big secret to all this. All relationships are the same. You are the same in every relationship that you're in. The only thing that changes is the level of intimacy. And so, if you're not bringing the right things, if you're not bringing all of you to those relationships, well, then you're doing yourself and you're doing the other person a disservice. So let's bring more of you into your workplace, more of you into those work relationships. Let's help you to build the kind of sustainable relationships that lead to massive success, that lead to people saying, you know what, you're the kind of person that I will follow anywhere. I know leaders like that. There's a handful of people that I know that I literally would follow them anywhere. And it's because of who they are as leaders, and it's because of how they show up in the world. And everything that I do in this space is about bringing that to my clients. So I thank you for being here tonight. For those of you that were on the live stream, I really appreciate you taking the time out from your, wherever you are in the world, whether it's day, night, morning, whatever it is. I just certainly appreciate you being available to listen to this. And for those of you who watch this recording later, I just want you to know that if you have more questions, you can always email me. Also, if you go to the enrollment page for this program, you'll see down near the bottom, there's a place where you can actually click on a link if you still have questions and literally schedule a one-on-one call with me. So if you want to talk to me personally, I've populated my calendar with 45-minute openings where people can literally hop on the phone with me, schedule a call, and I will tell you, I will share anything, I will answer any question you need to know about this program, about me, about the impact that this is going to have, and about why you should be a part of this program. Because listen, this isn't just about what I teach, this is about you. This is all about you. And if you go out into the world as a better leader, that's, I look at it as the ripple effect. If I can impact you in a positive way, who are the people that you're going to impact in a positive way? What about all the people in your sphere of influence that you're going to touch? And then you're going to see the ripples go out from them. And then they're going to touch others. This is how we start a movement. And, let's be honest, that's what I'm trying to do here, is to really create a movement that changes how projects are led. So again, I thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast now, but I appreciate every one of you. If you have more questions, email me, hop on the enrollment page. If you want to schedule a call with me, let's do that. All right. Until next time, I wish you all the best of success. Thanks for being here, and goodbye.